Welcome back, everyone, to Embrace the Spoilers for World of Warcraft Legion. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, and I'm sitting here with Jocelyn Moffett. Happy Monday, Jocelyn.
Happy Monday indeed, Garrett.
I'm feeling so tired today, and it's perfect. It's a perfect time to feel tired because I'm going to feel just like our stoner buddy Malfurion today.
Stoner buddy?
Have you listened to that voice actor deliver any line? Any line at all, Jocelyn? Anything.
Oh man, that's really funny because near the end, we'll talk about it. But in that dungeon, when he's talking, he's so like, I don't know, not stonery, like smug, and he's like a total asshole.
I'm not a fan of Malfurion at all. I really like the Night Elves. They're my favorite race, my favorite lore. I hate Malfurion. I find him to be one of the most infuriating characters in all of World of Warcraft. I don't like him at all, and I don't know who his voice actor is. I'm sure that voice actor has plenty of other good stuff. This is not one of his good stuff. The voice acting for Malfurion is borderline unbearable to me.
Yeah, I am definitely with you on the hate on Malfurion train. Especially after playing through this zone, I was just like, you know what? If he just died, I think that's like the only character in Warcraft right now that I'd be okay if we just like lost him. If he was just like,
I was saving that to the very end. I was gonna end this episode with putting that forward, but since you're kicking it off with that, you're absolutely right. So many characters have died this expansion, Jocelyn. Some extremely important ones before the expansion technically even began, and I was honestly prepared for Malfurion to die, and we're right now we're being 100% reactionary. This is just our own personal stuff. Believe me, we are both quite aware of the gravity of the character of Malfurion, how important the character is to the World of Warcraft mythos. This is just our own personal tastes that we're discussing right now. Which is weird, but apparently we need to keep reminding people of that because when people don't play the faction that you play, they just they get kind of up in arms about certain opinions, Jocelyn. Yes.
And I will say, I wouldn't be okay with Malfurion dying just because he's Alliance. I think a lot of the events of this zone make him a bad character.
Yeah. So I don't know. Oh, and I just looked it up. It's the same voice actor that did Tyrael in Diablo 2. What? That's nuts. What? It's fantastic. I love Tyrael in Diablo 2. What's going on with? And I'm pretty sure it's the same actor that does Malfurion's voice in Hearthstone, and I love his voice work in Hearthstone. I don't know what it is in the proper MMO of World of Warcraft that just drives me nuts. But if I have to hear him go Tyrande one more time, I'm gonna lose my mind. That's what that comes down to. So anyway, today, if you haven't figured it out from my just wanton bitching about Malfurion, today we are covering Val'sharah. This will be our fourth and final leveling zone that we will cover in regards to our coverage of Legion. And I was completely in the dark about Val'sharah, Jocelyn. I as I mentioned, I think on all three episodes prior to this, I kept myself as far away from the spoilers as I possibly could. I wasn't all that familiar with the War of the Ancients lore. Vaguely, ancillarily, I've picked stuff up through osmosis, mostly from hanging out with you. But that was about as far as it went. I knew it had an elf thing, had something to do with the Highborn. I knew the Well of Eternity was there, and shit went bad. But I didn't know anything about Val'sharah. All I knew it was like a name on the map that Blizzard sometimes showed us at BlizzCon. That was it. That was the end of it for me. And so this zone, now that I've done all five, including Suramar, at least as much of Suramar as I can do thanks to rep gaining, this zone is without a doubt I think the single biggest treat for me in like all of World of Warcraft.
Really?
This hit me right in the fandom, aside from Malfurion. Malfurion aside, this hit me right in the fandom. And I know I think I've talked about it already on the show, but when I started playing World of Warcraft in vanilla, the first thing I rolled was a Night Elf Hunter, and that was my main up until halfway through Wrath of the Lich King. When I swapped to Horde, became a filthy neutral player who now has ties to both the Horde and Alliance. And when Chris Metzen gets up every BlizzCon and goes, "Where's my Alliance at? Where's my Horde at?" I'm just kind of like, I like both. So, sorry for being that filthy neutral player, but anyway, what I'm getting at is that the Night Elf stuff, especially like specifically World of Warcraft Night Elf stuff, is like just hits me right in the nostalgia feels. Because I remember getting into WoW for the very first time, starting out in the Night Elf starting zone, and just kind of having my mind blown, falling in love with World of Warcraft. And Val'sharah, God, it was like coming home. It's so reminiscent of the Night Elf starting zone, but it's brought up to 2016 Warcraft standards.
See, and this is why I enjoyed the zone, because as a Horde player, I had never really gotten to experience that Night Elf kind of feel and area. There's a little bit of it in like parts of Ysera, because that's kind of like a little bit of a contested zone between the goblins and the Night Elves. So there you get to kind of see little glimpses of it, but it was really cool to actually get to spend some time in those kind of areas. Just because, like you mentioned, Night Elves are such a big part of the history of the World of Warcraft. So to be able to spend some time as a player who normally wouldn't see that kind of architecture and that kind of a faction was really interesting for me.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The music, like, it goes down to just the music. The music that plays in the beginning parts of Val'sharah is the music from the Night Elf starting zone, just reorchestrated. And
they've done that a lot. They played on the nostalgia feels with the music, because there are a lot of zones that are just like, oh wait, I know this music, but it's a little different, and they've just reorchestrated little different parts of music in order to give you a new experience while still making you like remember and feel like you're back in, Storm Peaks or the Night Elf starting zone, apparently.
Yeah, they did. I mean, if Draenor was playing off of nostalgia for old school Warcraft, I think Legion is playing off World of Warcraft's own nostalgia. It's just going back to its own well, the well it created. And it still does go back to old Warcraft, I think, too, but honestly, probably more. I think it goes back more to the novels than it does the actual RTSs in many places. But there's so much of Legion that is like cyclical in nature and pulling, like, very clearly trying to pull on your heartstrings from previous World of Warcraft expansions. And I think it's very effective. I think the fact that they just kind of own that, and they're like, we're very aware of what we're doing. You're very aware of what we're doing. Let's just have fun with it and embrace it and take that and run with it. And I think it's been very successful throughout the whole darn thing. I mean, Stormheim, for the love of God, just getting in there and hearing the bagpipes again, I'm just like, and I'm back in Howling Fjord. I'm back in Northrend. Except I'm not having to do every other quest in a vehicle rather than playing my actual character. Which I would say is a net positive. So cool stuff. But let's get into it and talk about exactly what's going on in Val'sharah. So we already covered Azuna, which was extremely thick with lore dating back to the Great Sundering. But Jocelyn, Azuna ain't got shit on Val'sharah. This place is just ripping at the seams with like lore goodness from just like so many thousands of years prior to now in the Warcraft timeline. Val'sharah, if you're unfamiliar, this is like the heart of the Druid Order. This is where Druids started. This is where Malfurion was trained by the demigod Cenarius. And no, he is not just a legendary card in Hearthstone. He is a straight up god.
Demigod.
It's pretty much a god. Okay? Like, pretty much a god. I understand Demi's in front of it, but whatever. And this is where we kind of had our schism in the Night Elf culture. We had the arcane obsessed Highborn, and once Malfurion started getting trained by Cenarius and the Druid Order was formed, we had the schism. Now we have the Night Elves with the Druids that worship nature, and then we have the Highborn, which kind of caused a lot of problems for Azeroth. Most notably, all of them So it's also, I think, worth mentioning that the Sisterhood of Elune is another kind of schism within the culture of Night Elves, except that the Sisterhood of Elune get along, I would say, pretty well with the Druids. I don't know. The leader of the Sisterhood of Elune kind of has the hots for the leader of the Druids, so they get along.
Well, they're
just
actually
fine.
officially married now.
Yeah, I don't like admitting that because I'm still mad that they're married.
But yeah, like, I mean, the Sisterhood of Elune is kind of interesting because they are somewhere in between that kind of arcane and nature, because they pull their power from what is essentially the light to regular priests and to paladins, but they call it Elune, and they basically worship the moon itself. So it's a really interesting culture in that way, because they kind of balance the arcane magic-y stuff with the nature-y stuff. So I like the Sisterhood. I think it's really interesting.
Isn't the magic that fuels the light separate and different from arcane magic, though?
It is, but it's the same sort of theme. Like, it's still magic. They're still like magical.
Right. But there's a specific faux pas against arcane practices in the Night Elf order, at least the Alliance Night Elves that we know, which are basically a combination of the Sisterhood of Elune and the Druid Night Elves. Those are the Night Elves that we know from World of Warcraft, that we played as through Warcraft 3. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, we really until Legion, we didn't really know to the full extent what happened with the arcane power wielding Night Elves. We got to see a little bit of it thanks to the Caverns of Time back in Cataclysm. But that was about it. It actually caused quite a stir when Night Elves were able to start playing mages. A lot of the old school Warcraft lore nerds said, no, this would never happen. Mm-hmm. But Legion, I think, has really helped tie all of that together.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And I know that a lot of people, like you mentioned, were upset that Night Elves could play mages. But at the same time, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned this when we were talking about Azuna, that they do fill in a lot of gaps in the books. And I kind of wish that they'd filled in a lot of gaps in the game, because I don't even know. And again, I'm not an Alliance player. And actually, I wasn't playing at the time. I came in after Cataclysm happened. So the Night Elves could already be mages by the time I made it, excuse me, into the game. So it wasn't that big of a shock for me. But to me, as a book reader, it made perfect sense. Like, there have always been Night Elves who wielded arcane magic. They're like exiled from the society, but it makes a lot of sense that if Malfurion were to wake up and he and Tyrande were to rule together, that they would have a very open society, because they seem to be very accepting within certain kind of parameters and rules, like play by the rules, like don't summon Sargeras, and we'll be cool.
You had one job.
Yeah.
You had one job, Highborn. But yeah, so that's there's the primer for everything that's happening in Val'sharah. So we, as players, as heroes, whether of the Horde or Alliance, are dispatched to Val'sharah because we need to meet up with Malfurion and retrieve yet another pillar of creation, Jocelyn. This time, the Tears of Elune, which is a Night Elf artifact we previously didn't really know of, like all of the pillars of creation, which is kept at the Temple of Elune, which is the old head, joint of the Sisterhood of Elune. Where Tyrande used to hang out before she was relocated to Darnassus.
Well, yeah, the Temple of Elune, and when we come upon it, it's pretty much destroyed, and that's an artifact of the War of the Ancients. The Temple of Elune was devastated when the Legion came to Azeroth the first time. So
what's left is still in pretty good shape, I would argue. It's a nice looking little area.
There's some bits and pieces that are all right.
Yeah. But once we get there, we learn, because nothing can ever be easy, that shit has really hit the fan in Val'sharah. Malfurion informs us that Cenarius is being corrupted by the Emerald Nightmare, and so sends us into our first lore break of the episode, a mere 14 minutes into trying to just explain this zone. So, Jocelyn, I think to explain the Emerald Nightmare, we must first explain the Emerald Dream.
Which is kind of... The Emerald Dream is weird in and of itself. Like, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. It's this, like, parallel universe kind of that mirrors our own, but it's
the way I like to explain the dream is it's kind of like trying to describe any of the horrors in H.P. Lovecraft. It's written like in H.P. Lovecraft, the horrors are written that it's an indescribable and incomprehensible amount of terror. Something you just like a mere mortal cannot describe, and so it drives you to madness. And the Emerald Dream is like the polar opposite of that. It's this realm of such immense beauty and life that like mortal beings just cannot comprehend it. But the way it's explained to us in Warcraft is that it's this kind of mirror, like this alternate existence of Azeroth, with no influence of intelligent beings. So everything that exists in Azeroth exists in the Emerald Dream, but it's free of the influence of any of the mortal races. So if you were to go to where Orgrimmar or Stormwind would be, it would not be there. It would just be land and vegetation and life. And the other thing to know about this is also the realm of Ysera, the dragon aspect of the Emerald Dragonflight. So yeah, that's basically the dream. We don't really hardly ever go there in World of Warcraft. There's a few key moments where we get to kind of traverse or at least peer into the dream. But that's usually left to the druids. That's why Malfurion was sleeping for so long. He was communing with the Emerald Dream. And
which basically just sounds like a 10,000-year vacation. Like, honestly, oh, honey, I'm just going to go to sleep in Utopia.
All right.
I'll be back.
In his defense, this thing called the Emerald Nightmare kind of sprouted up after the War of the Ancients.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I didn't even mean to do that. Oh, look what I did. So the Emerald Nightmare is an ever-moving area of corruption within the Emerald Dream.
I wonder if Malfurion hadn't actually entered the dream, like if it had just remained the domain of the Green Dragonflight, if the Emerald Nightmare would have existed. Because he is part of, or I guess technically the Night Elves were immortal. Now they're not. But at the time when he first entered, they would have been. But still, I wonder if his entry into the dream maybe started a chain reaction that ended with the nightmare.
Well, I believe it was everything that happened with Xavius that started the Emerald Nightmare. I'm not sure how linked Malfurion's own entry into the dream, is to that. But the Emerald Nightmare, it is revealed that Xavius, the Nightmare Lord, who, like, lore break within a lore break, Xavius was the former advisor of Queen Ysera, who, if you want to hear more about, we talked about at nauseum back on the Azuna episode. But so he was the former advisor of Queen Ysera. This is his resume. He was the first satyr ever. After he was basically killed by Malfurion, he was killed too close to the Well of Eternity, and Sargeras, just took his soul and transformed him into the first satyr. And the final thing, and this is my favorite thing on Xavius' resume, he was turned into an actual fucking tree by Malfurion.
Yep. In an effort to contain his power, which then I think, was that the Storm Rage book that talked about everything that happened in the nightmare, dealing with the nightmare tree that was Xavius? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because there was a version of Xavius, the tree, in actual Azeroth, and then a version of Xavius that appeared in the dream, which I believe was the beginning point of the nightmare. But I'm not 100% clear on that. But I think that's kind of where the Emerald Nightmare began. Could be wrong on that. Feel free to correct me, everyone. Come at me, nerds! But yeah, he rules the nightmare, and all of this is rumored. He's basically a pawn of a greater evil coming from within the Rift of Aln, which is a vast, deep fissure located within the Emerald Dream itself. And this is a lot of druids think that this is actually where the Emerald Dream originated, is from the Rift of Aln. But that greater evil is most likely N'Zoth, Jocelyn. So
this is another N'Zoth thing.
Yes,
that's interesting.
More N'Zoth ties. There's no way N'Zoth is not showing up in this expansion. There's just no way at this point. There's too much N'Zoth talk.
Yeah, I think that there's been enough things that are pointing towards him that I hope that we see him, because he's the only old god that we haven't actually seen in game yet, right? So
correct. We actually, huge Hearthstone points, Hearthstone was our first ever visualization of N'Zoth, and it was confirmed by Team 5 that they worked with the World of Warcraft team on the design of N'Zoth, so we can pretty much take that image as a canonical representation of what N'Zoth looks like, which is basically a giant kraken.
Yes, which is so cool.
Very, very cool. So
N'Zoth, if he is, responsible for the creation of the Naga, he's responsible for the creation of the Emerald Dream-ish, or Emerald Nightmare, the Emerald something. Like, he's so ridiculously powerful. I'm interested to see how they actually implement that. I mean, clearly probably raid boss, but I don't know. I'm so excited to see him actually materializing in the game. It's going to be so good.
Yeah, I am as well. Anytime we get into Old God stuff, it's great. Ulduar with Yogg-Saron is, in my opinion, still the greatest raid in the history of World of Warcraft. So I would love to see them take on N'Zoth. Although it would have to be way different from, well, maybe not, because all the old gods were imprisoned, and every old god we have fought so far, we have fought them basically in their prison. So will we get to see another old god prison? More crazy cool Titan stuff?
Oh, God, I don't even know. I hope so. The more you're talking, the more I'm like, yes.
Yeah, because Ahn'Qiraj, which is where we fought Cthulhu, was the prison constructed by the Titans to keep Cthulhu in. I've been reading Chronicle, Volume 1, by the way.
Good.
I'm not far into it. I couldn't sleep last night, so I started it and read up to the end of the imprisoning of the old gods.
So good, right?
Yeah. So now my brain is like churning. I'm like, there's 4 old gods, and there's 4 old god prisons, and we've seen 2? 3. 3 of them. Sorry.
3, yes.
Well,
yes.
I guess there was no prison for Y'Shaarj because he was just straight up killed by a Titan, but we did find his heart in Pandaria.
Yeah, the vault where they kept his heart, basically. Yeah,
exactly. So, so we've seen 3, or at least the remains, or the actual old gods of 3 old gods now, and N'Zoth is the only one left. So, oh man, I'm so excited, Joss.
It's going to be really interesting because, I mean, like, his prison was in the part of Kalimdor that was destroyed with the explosion of the Well of Eternity, right? So how intact his prison still is, like, where it actually is, like, are we going to be, like, going down under the ocean to, like, the center of the Maelstrom or something? Like, I don't know. It could be anywhere. It's so exciting.
Jocelyn, are we going to get the World of Warcraft equivalent of the Water Temple from Zelda?
Yes!
Sign me up.
I hope so.
Totally.
I was one of those rare Zelda players that liked the Water Temple.
I liked it too, although I did totally have to follow the player's guide point by point because I tried doing it without it, and I got a key out of order and could not continue the dungeon.
I definitely had to go back to the start and retrace my steps over and over and over. It was tricky, and that's why it was so good.
Yep. Also, you fight Dark Link. How can you not like the freaking Water Temple? Come on.
Right?
Anyways, this is not a Zelda show.
Sorry.
All right. We got our N'Zoth nerd out of our system. Let's continue on. So we find out that Cenarius is being corrupted by the Emerald Nightmare. We just explained what the Emerald Nightmare was. It's bad. It's very bad. Cenarius is a demigod. He's extremely important to the health of Azeroth as a world. So the fact that he's being corrupted by pure unadulterated evil is really bad. Malfurion's not happy about this. He's very shaken, probably the most shaken I think we've ever seen him in this game. When we quest alongside him in Hyjal back in Cataclysm, he's pretty he's feeling good. Cenarius is doing fine. They're ready to take the fight to Ragnaros. But here he's just not doing well. So he needs help with Cenarius. So he sends us to rally the archdruids so that they can all get together and aid in hopefully cleansing Cenarius of the corruption. So this is our first big kind of branching quest line. There's 3 archdruids we have to go talk to. We can talk to them in any particular order. But for the purposes of our discussion, I wanted to start with Elothyr, who is the archdruid of lore. And
this is actually the exact order that I played it into. I went lore Clawvale.
I went literally backwards of this, which kind of spoils the biggest revelation in the area. So we talked to Elothyr first. He's a big, awesome tree. Sadly, he needs help with significantly less awesome harpies, which if you're not aware of our hatred of harpies in this expansion, just listen to the last episode in High Mountain, where we shit all over the harpies. And
I love their character design though.
I do
I
too.
just don't like their voice. I just don't like their voice work.
I particularly love the animation of the hunched over harpy that's kind of like snapping its head around that I think is new to this expansion. It could be recycled, I don't know, but these new harpy models look great and I love the new animations. But damn, the screeches. Can't stand the screeches. Too much. But so we kill a bunch of harpies, we save a bunch of his fellow ancients, and Elothier goes and joins Malfurion with Cenarius.
You know, I think that playing this zone, because this was the second zone that I did, I think playing this zone is probably why I disliked High Mountain as much as I did, because I'd already dealt with a lot of harpies, and it followed this exact same sort of model as High Mountain did, where it was like, here's our different factions. You have to help our different factions in order to free up their leaders to come back and do the thing that we have to do for the main story.
I guess
so
I
I'd already done that once. And then I got to High Mountain, and I was like, okay, again.
I hadn't really considered that, but you're right. They are quite similar.
It's the same quest design, yeah.
They are quite similar, and I just and a lot of, I think, at least our enjoyment of World of Warcraft does come down to our own personal tastes and the things we like, and I think we're both significantly more invested in the Zone of Val'sharah than we were in what was happening with the Torrent at High Mountain.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I said, I played through this first, so for me it felt like the other two zones, Azuna and Stormheim, had their own kind of design. Val'sharah had its own design, and then so High Mountain copied the design of Val'sharah kind of from a quest line progression sort of a perspective. I'm wondering if I would have felt the same if I'd played High Mountain first. If I'd gone to High Mountain, helped them, done that all questing, if then I would have felt like our Val'sharah was the derivative one.
I think I would have been fine with it just because of, again, my fandom. Just like, I don't care, Val'sharah is awesome, let's go. But
so see, and I don't have that same kind of tie, so I feel like it would have changed my perspective on the zone a lot had I played this after High Mountain.
Okay, fair enough. You're a pretty big ancient War of the Ancients fan, though, so I think
yeah, but I got my War of the Ancients stuff from Azuna.
Yeah, but that's just a little flashback. Here, you're like straight up just hanging out in one of the biggest set piece zones from the War of the Ancients.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on to the next archdruid, Coda Steelclaw, archdruid of the Claw. And this is where we get to fight some Furbolg, Jocelyn, which I haven't gotten to done. That's the worst. That's the most Florida thing that has left my mouth in a long time. I haven't had the chance to fight Furbolg since, what was it, Felwood in Vanilla, which is north of Ysera.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Winter Spring had them too, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, that was connected to Felwood. You had to go through the Furbolg cavern, and if you were an idiot like I was back in Vanilla, you corpse ran Furbolg cavern because I didn't know you could actually gain rep with the Furbolg and make them friendly. So my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and I corpse ran that thing like crazy to get the Winter Spring, and just it became harder and harder after that run, Jocelyn, to get friendly with the Furbolg because we killed so many of them while trying to run through that cavern. They hated us by the end of it. Memories.
Sounds very familiar.
World of Warcraft memories. But yeah, so there's a group of Furbolg hanging out in Val'sharah. They've been corrupted, so we need to deal with them. And it turns out Coda Steelclaw, like all the best druids, is taking a nap in her barrow den.
Which, if you are newer to druid culture, I thought that was a cool way to introduce the idea of druids sleeping in their barrows to commune with the dream.
Yes,
I thought it was really cool to actually go down into, because I, at least as a non-druid, non-alliance player, this is the first time I've actually seen a druid barrow.
Yeah, there's some of them in the Night Elf starting zone, but
okay. Yeah. I thought maybe there might be some in Moonglade too, but I wasn't really sure because Moonglade is kind of like the center of druidic activity, right?
Why do you go to Moonglade if you're not a druid?
There's an event.
It's the yeah, I know what you're talking about now. You're right. I'm dumb. It's the moon thing, the lunar festival.
And then Yeah, the Lunar Festival. Thank you. And then you can get the flight path in there, and then you can go anytime.
That's what it was. Because again, this is this is why I love Val'sharah. This is so tied to my like formative years in World of Warcraft, which is a stupid thing to say. But my first year of playing WoW with Katie, who is now my wife, she played a druid. And I was just a night elf hunter, and she would just be like, haha, I have a little Port to Moonglade. I can go hang out in my super cool druid area whenever I want.
Which then also cataract, because then you could fly. So then you could just fly into Moonglade once you were high enough level.
Or during that Furball Cavern Corpse run, you could take a left instead of a right and actually just walk into Moonglade.
There you go. Yep. I didn't know that there was a way. I thought it was surrounded on all sides like a big giant crater bowl thing.
Nope, no, the Furball Cave goes into it as well.
Interesting.
Yep. It was also because we, during our corpse run, took a wrong turn and ended up in Moonglade instead of Winterspring. And we're just like, oh no, we have to go back in. Of course, Katie was just like, hey, it's my druid buddies. But anyways, again, sorry, this is just too tied to my nostalgia for this game. I can't help but go down some memory lanes. But so we cleanse the Furbog. We go down into Coda's Barrow Den and awaken her. And we find that a group of satyrs and demons are hanging out deeper in the Barrow Den and causing all of the issues that are happening in Coda's little, section of Val'sharah. So we go and do what night elves do best and wipe out the satyrs, Jocelyn. We just start murdering them with reckless abandon.
Very satisfying.
Yes, including their leader, Morphael. And so with that taken care of, Coda Steelclaw can go and join Elothyr and Malfurion. And we head off towards the third and final archdruid, Theon. I don't know. Theon Moonclaw is how I will choose to pronounce that.
Theon is what I was calling him, but I don't think that's right.
I don't know. That rolls off the tongue easier than Theon. So I'm going to go with Theon as well. And Theon is probably the most notable of the archdruids that we talked to. He was quite instrumental in the War of the Ancients. And after the War of the Ancients, the satyrs were rounded up by the night elves. And Theon wanted to kill them all. However, he was outvoted by his fellow night elves, and the satyrs were instead put into a slumber and imprisoned underneath the world tree Saladrisil, which is here in Val'sharah. Well, it turns out Theon, I guess, had the right idea, Jocelyn, because shit has hit the fan because they all woke up.
Yeah.
So everything is just going horribly in Val'sharah because all of these imprisoned satyrs have woken up and are... understandably, quite pissed off. They're not happy.
Absolutely.
Very angry satyrs. If we start a new World of Warcraft show, it would be called The Angry Satyr with Garrett and Jocelyn.
Why must everything we do be angry?
Well, at this point, it's just a joke. I mean,
That's true.
it's a running joke. I mean, we could use a synonym to angry. It could be the ill-tempered satyr. Or the sadistic satyr.
Oh, I like that one.
The sadistic satyr. There we go.
Yeah. I'm all about the alliteration.
Yeah. So the satyrs are just running amok in Theon's neck of the woods. So we take the fight to the satyrs, and Theon is being very foreboding, saying, "Oh, I sense a darker presence. I will." So he goes and investigates said darker presence while we kind of take out the satyrs and the lesser satyr lieutenants. And we end up saving another night elf named Avel or Evele, I don't know, stupid night elf names. We'll just call her Night Whisper by her last name. And she drops the bomb that Xavius is back. He is behind the satyr attack, and that Theon is in grave danger. So we run to inform Theon of all this, but we are too late. Theon had been corrupted by the nightmare, and we must fight him to the death. And we are successful. At least I hope we were. Jocelyn, are you still just dying and rezzing and trying to beat Theon?
No, I also did purge him of his corruption, shall we say.
Yeah. So, Theon dies.
Really?
Which was sad. I liked him a lot. I thought he was cool. I love... Because night elves are always so, at least when we come across them in World of Warcraft, they're always so passive and peaceful, and they're like Malfurion, and it's just like, man, you're smoking too much whatever is growing.
Whatever druids smoke.
Whatever's growing in Darnassus, you're just a little too communed with nature. So to find one that's just like, no, we need to fuck these guys up. Death to the satyrs. Like, I'm like, yeah, Theon Moonclaw. And then we had to kill him. So sad day.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see, like, this is another character that, like you said, had a big role in the War of the Ancients. He was a powerful ally against the Legion. He did a lot of really great things. And then, so it's kind of anticlimactic, and I found that with a lot of the storylines in this zone. It's very anticlimactic to see a character like that get killed by an adventurer. Like
I mean, I don't know.
At this point, I know we're very powerful. We were a general in Draenor. We have now taken up arms and have our artifact weapons, and we are, the savior of our orders and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. It's just really sad for me to see characters like this just kind of unceremoniously being removed from the story.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many people dropping off that certain people, not everyone can get a cinematic. So I understand it.
Yeah.
And
oh no, and I understand. Yeah, I just maybe wanted it as a dungeon boss or something, but we have to go basically underground, and this part was actually spoiled for me because I did it day one, and so I came across his corpse and I was like because someone had just killed him right in front of me.
Oh, so you
accidentally, and I just didn't get there in time to tag him, so I was like, well, I guess he's the bad guy. Because the quest says something like
yeah, the quest doesn't spoil it.
No, the quest says like save him or reconnect, or there's some sort of wording that basically means like find him. Yeah,
find Theron.
And so it was the fact that he was dead kind of spoiled it for me.
Well, I mean, it was spoiled by like a minute, as opposed. At least it wasn't spoiled at the beginning. Yeah. I thought when you started saying that you literally at the very beginning of the zone ended up in the Barrow Den where you confront him, and you're like, oh crap, I'm in the wrong place. Oh, is that Theon's corpse? Oh shit! And then you had to go and do like 5 more quests.
Oh yeah, no, not that bad.
Him. Okay, that would have been kind of hilariously.
Yeah. But then I just had to like stand there and wait for him to respawn, and
very unceremonious.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, first day of an MMO.
Exactly.
Things happen. Yeah. So after all this, we return to the Grove of Cenarius and reunite with the archdruids that are still breathing, and Malfurion. It doesn't work. They still can't cleanse Cenarius. So the archdruids, along with Malfurion, summon Ysera into our realm. And this is where I just completely lost all my chill. I had 0 chill after this point, Jocelyn.
This is the thing that I had just finished doing when we recorded, I guess, was it the first episode? It was
Gamers In.
It was Gamers In, that's it, yeah. So we were recording, and I was saying, like, I just done something in Val'sharah that was, like, the coolest thing ever, and I was so super excited, and that was, you got to summon Ysera, and then, yeah, she takes you places.
Yes, it's amazing. So like I didn't get, they're just like, all right, help us with the summoning. I'm like, well, what are we summoning? And it's just like, holy shit, it's Ysera. She just comes out, and it's not even one of the cool cinematics with good camera work. It's just one of the in-game ones with like kind of like a weird tracking shot, and I didn't care. I was still into it. I was still losing all my chill. And so once Ysera is in our realm, she tells us that we must go to the Temple of Elune to get the Tears of Elune from Lyannis Moonfall, who's currently in charge of the Temple of Elune, which is, as far as we know, where the Tears of Elune are kept. So we head over there, and when we reach the temple, we just realize just how dire the situation in Val'sharah is. The Temple of Elune is under siege by demons, and we see that the World Tree Shaladrisil is completely corrupted by the Nightmare. And oh, what a cool set piece. All the roots just uprooting entire structures. Just looks amazing. So we proceed to go fight our way through the demons. Xavius appears to us, and we learn that he has stolen the Tears of Elune. Because, of course, it wasn't going to be that easy. What were you thinking?
Exactly.
We only did like 20 quests.
We were going to walk up to Tyrande, and she'd be like, oh, here, yeah, I've just been holding on to this, but take it.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, actually, Tyrande's nowhere to be found.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure where she is. More on that later. So we return to the Grove of Cenarius. We return to Ysera, and as we get there, Cenarius is completely consumed by the corruption. Roots come up, and he disappears. Malfurion lets off a very whiny yell and sets off in a blind rage to confront Xavius.
I was really confused by this because Cenarius is never, like, no one ever says that he dies. Ysera calls it the loss of Cenarius is hitting Malfurion hard. So, and I mean, and so this is a spoiler within a spoiler cast, but like, so in the actual zone, you're not really sure what happened to him. And this is another unceremonious, like,
I wasn't.
he's just gone.
Yes, I was unclear of this as well. It is not made clear whether he's dead or just been taken into the Emerald Nightmare. Now, we have not raided yet.
Which was going to be my spoiler within a spoiler, is that we do, or at least if you are paying any attention / have seen any, like, because I know my raid team is getting ready to, like, ramp up and do raiding, so we're looking at all the bosses and everything. And Cenarius is a boss, so he's not, like, dead. He's, I guess, corrupted. But it was very unclear what actually happened to him, given that pretty much everyone else in the zone who becomes corrupted then dies. So the fact that he got corrupted and then didn't die, he just, like, poof, gone, magic. I was kind of like, I wish there had been a little bit more explanation of, like, oh, Cenarius has been sucked into the nightmare, or he was too powerful to die, so he's just been consumed, or something like that. Would have just that little bit of extra explanation, because I was like, Malfurion just storms off in a huff like he's a 12-year-old. And Ysera just calls it a loss. And so I'm just like, well, a loss could be a death, or a loss could be he's switched sides. Like, there's a lot of ways to lose a person, or a demigod in this case.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I would have liked more information, but at the time, I was fine with it. It didn't really bother me, because it was just like, yeah, we just need to go. Like, this is awful. This is arguably the most dire event in everything I've done so far in Legion. Cool. Like, when Ysera tells me to go do something, I don't question it. I'm just like, yeah, okay, shit's bad. I guess I better just do what Ysera says. So especially
when she says, get on my back, and then you get to ride her chasing after Malfurion, which was so freaking cool. I took so many screenshots, and given the events of the zone, I am so happy I have all of these screenshots of my main character riding Ysera through Val'sharah. Like, I just went screenshot crazy. I think I've got like 25. Like, all different angles, and like, I was like, I'm riding Ysera, bitches.
Yep. The dragon aspect, responsible for being the guardian of an actual utopia and parallel universe, the Emerald Dream, is in Azeroth, and the best way you can think to remember that moment, to respect her existence and the fact that you're riding Ysera, is to take a fucking selfie. Congratulations, Jocelyn.
Yep.
Oh, that's the most millennial thing I've ever heard. No, I totally took my own selfies too. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I couldn't help but do a bit there. But yeah, so we get to ride Ysera and commit basically genocide against satyrs as we fight to save Malfurion. And Jocelyn, as if the Night Elf fanboy in me wasn't already completely losing all chill, we get to meet up with Tyrande during the course of all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is also worth mentioning, the only real difference I could find between the Horde and the Alliance. I did not go through and replay through all of Val'sharah as an Alliance toon, but I did what research I could online, and it seems like the only difference for the zone between Alliance and Horde is that Tyrande is nice to you if you're an Alliance player, and she's kind of a dick if you're a Horde.
Yeah, she was kind of okay. And I mean, I understand why she'd be mad at me. I think I've killed her probably about 10 times now, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not, and I didn't think she was that bad. And by the end of it, she's just like, you've proven, your dedication to keeping Azeroth safe, basically. So
yeah, I didn't think she was that bad. I thought she was far and away better than Jaina for comparison.
Oh god. Well, that's I mean, if Jaina is the bar to clear for being able to keep your eye on the greater evil, then yeah, everyone we talk to is better than Jaina.
Yeah, but I mean, just like the kind of conversation beats with Tyrande, and maybe it just was because I was on a Horde player, but I found her, like, after meeting and spending time with her, I understand why she chose Malfurion, because they're both whiny little bitches. So
oh, come on. Oh, no. No, Tyrande.
Out of nowhere, for no reason, she just starts like bitching at me and lecturing me over how she's loved for 10,000 years. And have you ever done that, you little horde, whatever? Like, oh my God, she was insufferable. I found her just absolutely awful to quest with as a horde
that was
player.
the most. I loved that stuff. That was the most elfy elf goodness, I think, in the whole zone.
She was so like look down your nosy.
That's I love it. That's elf. that's elf royalty, though. That's how it should be. That's what I love about the elves in Lord of the Rings.
Tyrande should be like that because she is the head of the priestesses. She's supposed to be a little bit more down to earth and accepting.
Okay, all right, Jocelyn. Sorry, but to take a page out of Tyrande's book, she's literally loved this guy for 10,000 years, and he has been taken by pure evil. I think she's warranted a moment of humanity, or elf-manity, whatever it is. But
I don't know. I just for my first introduction to Tyrande, because really, and we've talked about this before, the Night Elves and their leadership generally are very removed from the main storyline of Warcraft. They don't really show up very often.
Yeah, and typically they're quite pragmatic. They do whatever is necessary for the greater good. They are typically able to put aside their personal whims and do what they need to do, and that's why Illidan is shunned from his own society. But I would argue Tyrande ultimately does make that call. She makes the Night Elf call, and later we'll talk about in just a second. She chooses her own order over the love of her life. But I'm gloves are off, Jocelyn. I'm gonna do all of the Alliance fanboys job for them and insert a comment right here, which is you're being too hard on Tyrande.
Well, but the thing is, like, she seemed to blame me for Malfurion being stupid and running off and going into a giant group of satyrs in the nightmare where he knows that Xavius is. Like, you literally have the aspect of the green dragonflight, the adventurer carrying whatever legendary weapon they happen to be carrying, because it can literally be any of them, and you've got 2 other archdruids, and you don't think going all together is a good idea?
I don't know.
This is Xavius. He's kicked your ass like 10 times now.
I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was consistent with the storytelling of Legion as a whole. I think they needed to make some reference to the tension between Alliance and Horde, with Tyrande showing up as a major player in the Alliance, not just in the Night Elves. That there had to be reference. There had to be reference of that tension, and I think they did it really well.
Yeah, and again, like I say, I'm just a Horde player, so I didn't get to see the nice side of her. I don't know, but I would be interested to see what she's like to the Alliance and the things that she says, and if it's
mostly just super friendly.
Well, just to see if, like, because like I said, I got the feeling that she was blaming me for Malfurion's poor decision making, and I wonder if you got that same feeling as Alliance, or if she was just kind of the frantic wife looking for her husband sort of thing, and you had nothing to do with it, which then I don't know which one I'd prefer, feeling like I'm a bigger player in the story and she's speaking to me directly even though she's blaming me, or if I would rather feel like she's nicer but I'm just a hanger on.
I didn't dig that deep. I found the thing I found differentiating voice lines when I was looking for was when you're protecting her near the pool. The Horde players, she basically orders you to protect her, and Alliance players, she treats you as equal. That was the big difference I found. I didn't look before that to see if she was also blaming the Alliance player. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. But I was just excited Tyrande was there. So I was just like, yeah, Tyrande, you're so cool. I don't care if you treat me like shit. I'm a Death Knight. Everyone treats me like shit.
Aww.
Yeah. So. No one likes Death Knights, so I feel as a Death Knight, you have a very unique perspective, which is everyone hates you.
That's probably true.
So you're just happy to be included. You're just happy to be picked for dodgeball. So, anyways, so we quest alongside Tyrande. We're split up from Ysera for a little bit. We're continuing to chase down Malfurion and Xavius. We found out Malfurion was captured by Xavius along the lines of questing with Tyrande. We finally catch up with them and find that Xavius he has the Tears of Elune in his possession. He corrupts them and he throws them into Ysera, like stabs it into her chest, which corrupts Ysera. Ysera is then an agent of the nightmare.
Yeah.
And once again, now Xavius, Malfurion, and Ysera are all Xavius escapes with Malfurion and Ysera, and we have to continue the chase alongside Tyrande. We finally catch up to Xavius again, and he sends Ysera to destroy the Temple of Elune, and this is where Tyrande is left with the choice. Does she pursue Xavius to save Malfurion, or does she break the chase and go and defend the Temple of Elune with her sisters?
Mm-hmm.
And
I've got to say that the questing right before you actually find Xavius, where you're trying to basically locate Malfurion, and Xavius keeps projecting Malfurion's image like onto satyrs, was really, really interesting. And I felt like the whole way, because at this point I had seen people not post spoilers, but just say like Val'sharah, like crying face. So I was pretty sure someone was going to die. I was pretty sure Malfurion was going to die. And there were multiple times where like you think that you see him and you think that you find him. At one point he's actually like laying on the ground and you think, okay, I finally found him and he's dead. And I was fully prepared for the death of Malfurion. And so I was totally okay with it, because I'm like, you made bad choices. You left your allies behind. You went up against an enemy that you know you can't defeat alone. And so I was kind of like, this makes sense to me, that we would then find him basically punished for that line of thinking and those actions. So, but I did really like that implementation of that questing just through that nightmare area. I thought that was really, really cool, because you had to investigate 5 or 6 different areas, and each time it's just Xavius toying with you.
Yeah.
Before you get to the final area with Xavius and the Ysera scene.
Yeah, it is exactly what I wanted with an area where the nightmare is creeping in, to be fooled, to have false visions. I really enjoyed all of it, and the art direction. If I can just art nerd for a second here, was phenomenal. I've never seen anything like this in all of World of Warcraft. This does not look like a game that is 12 years old now. Yeah. How long has World of Warcraft? Have we hit 12 years?
The 12th anniversary event is coming up just after BlizzCon.
Yeah, it's just incredible that they're able to still convey what they do in this engine. And this was for me a real highlight of my entire time with World of Warcraft.
I really enjoyed that. And I didn't just want to kind of skip over that particular part of questing, because you spend a lot of time with Tyrande. She is following her around in her pursuit of Malfurion is a very, very big part of the questing in the zone. Like, I mean, we were saying, I think off air, that this zone took a long time and felt really big. And when you actually condense the story down, it's basically like 4 little blurbs. But like the pursuit of Malfurion is a lot of quests.
It is a lot of quests, but like for the purposes of discussing lore, there's not a whole lot more that happens. It's a lot of go kill satyrs, go get duped by Xavius. As a whole,
protect me while I do this ritual by killing a bunch of satyrs.
Yes, exactly.
And I think at one point we go after some more harpies too.
You're right. That was a side quest, a complete aside, had nothing to do with what was happening.
Yeah.
And not one of my favorite side quests by any means. There's a lot of side quests throughout all of this. That's amazing. I think Azuna had some of the best ones. I loved, again, the one with the brother and sister, and I loved the imp side quest. The ones in Val'sharah, I think how good Val'sharah was plays against its side quests, because everything seems so urgent and so incredibly important and earth-shattering that when you have to stop and help like a random night elf with something, you're just like, dude, do you have any idea what's happening? Did you see the literal fucking corrupted Ysera? A fucking god is corrupted by pure evil and flew overhead, and you want me to kill harpies? Fuck yourself.
Well, and actually, that's a really good point, because I literally, when we started talking about side quests, just realized a huge part that we've totally left out of the notes that we should probably talk about. So we'll finish off Ysera's fate and we'll talk about the dungeon. But then there's a really big side questing area that we haven't even put in the notes. So.
Oh, you're right.
Brook?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And it's because I
okay.
completely missed it in my original playthrough. Completely.
Yeah, so
but yeah, let's
we'll
wrap this up.
And then we'll go on.
That's a good point.
So,
I'm glad you remembered because
yes.
It feels like another
that
zone
would
to
have
me.
been people would have written in about that and they would have been totally right to do so, because if we had forgotten about Brook, that would have been just total disservice to the zone.
we in our defense, we have mostly focused on the main lore storyline of a zone, and Braden's Brook is completely removed from what is happening in the majority of Val'sharah. I thought it was a different zone. Let's put it that way. I forgot that it took place in Val'sharah. Anyways, so Tyrande's left with this choice: defend the Temple of Elune or save Malfurion, and she chooses to go and defend the Temple of Elune from the attack of Ysera. We, as the hero, go along beside her, and we arrive just in time to find Ysera attacking the temple, and Tyrande leads the charge to kill Ysera, and Ysera is killed.
Which made me cry. That cinematic was
unbelievable. It was gorgeous. Yeah, so Ysera dies. She's lifted up. It becomes a new constellation in the sky. And the Tears of Elune emerge from her corpse.
Yeah, the purified tears.
The purified tears, emerge from her corpse and grow. It's a really nice animation of all this vegetation growing where the tears land. And this is, oh God, this was such a high point for me. This is like, so much of what originally drew me into World of Warcraft was Warcraft 3 and the events of it and all of these set pieces and being able to go and visit them and knowing that this area has so much history. Like my first time walking into Undercity and going through the throne room of Lordaeron and seeing the blood stain of King Tyrannus's crown on the ground where Arthas killed him. So, like, that type of stuff is what drew me into World of Warcraft originally, because I had played Warcraft 3. I had a decent sense of the history of the world and being able to actually go to these places and know that the history that existed in these landmarks were there. And to me now, this spot with that plant and that vegetation in the Temple of Elune it now has that much resonance for me as the throne room in Lordaeron.
That's a really good comparison, actually.
Yeah, and there's not a lot. There hasn't been really many events like this in World of Warcraft that I think have carried that much gravity. Like maybe the death of Arthas, maybe the death of Deathwing and the Dragonflight becoming mortal. Like that's the only two that pop into my head that are like to this level.
Which, and it's funny because this is the kind of plays into my feelings of kind of anticlimactic, because those two that you just mentioned were end bosses of expansions. You know, like you kill Arthas at the end of Lich King. You kill Deathwing at the end of Cataclysm. You kill Ysera in the middle of a leveling zone.
Yep.
And it's, I mean, like I mentioned, the cinematic made me tear up. Like this, for me, I mean, Ysera is probably one of my favorite aspects. I don't really think that there's another one that kind of, I feel like she's just the most level-headed, and she's also very passive because she's usually splitting her consciousness between the world that we inhabit and the Emerald Dream.
See, I find it's funny to hear because I've always liked her because I've always seen her as kind of borderline crazy. She's a little scatterbrain. She can't always tell what is reality and what is the dream, and I've always liked that aspect of her personality.
So I really like Ysera, and she's this. Well, she's the embodiment of the utopia that is the dream. So to then have to kill her so unceremoniously, and after, basically not even attempting to save her, like it just, I feel like with all of Tyrande's powers and like, I wish that it had ended with like her capture or something. Cause I was literally standing there and Ysera is fighting Tyrande and like the battle's happening and I know I'm supposed to help, and I'm just like, I don't want to kill her. She's the aspect of the green dragonflight. I don't want to do this. Like,
yeah, I definitely.
Is there not another way?
And this is the fun part. This is where like the lore nut in me and like my little like I we play on an RP server, but we don't actually RP. But there is part of me that gets into the RP, and that's really at the end of the day what keeps bringing me back to World of Warcraft. Is I want to exist in this realm. I want to be a part of Azeroth, and I had that exact same reaction when I played through this the first time on my paladin. And then on my second time as a Death Knight, I'm just like, I'm a Death Knight, and I want to kill a goddamn aspect. So, and it was fun. Like I like trying like understand, but yeah, absolutely. My first time when I got up to this, I like you didn't really see this coming. I was like, oh my god, they're gonna kill Malfurion, and having that kind of I was expecting Ysera to be a raid boss later on.
Yes, that's the other thing.
I was expecting the kind of the completion of this zone to be going into the dungeon of the Darkheart Thicket and realizing that Malfurion had been killed. But before any of that even happens, we kill Ysera, and we get the Pillars of Creation before we even enter the dungeon, which up until that point when I was playing, I had only ever gotten a hold of a pillar by doing the dungeon. So
well, yeah, this is the only zone where you don't have to do a dungeon to get your pillars.
Yeah. So
finish questing, and then that's it. The dungeon is completely optional.
Yeah, and it can be completely different depending on the order that you play through. But for me, it kind of played on my preconceptions of what had come before. I was expecting to have to go into the dungeon to get the pillar. So this completely sidelined me in every way imaginable. And some of it was because of not doing Val'sharah first. If I had done it first, I would have had different expectations going into other zones. But because I did not, oh man, I was so blindsided by the event, by the ending of this zone and Ysera dying.
Yeah, I'm really glad that this wasn't spoiled for me, and I, like I mentioned the cinematic before, I think that's probably my favorite cinematic out of anything that I've ever seen in Warcraft. I think it was beautifully done, and I think it if we had to have a send off for Ysera, that's what I wanted to see.
Oh yeah, it was just as I think like kind of gorgeous and overly beautiful that you would want something that is like this steeped in night elf lore to be. It's just nuts. I can't like of all the things, of all the people that have died, we've had kings die, and I'm a huge Varian fanboy. Like this got me even more.
Yeah, 100% for sure. And I think so that's why for me, Darkheart Thicket is probably my least favorite dungeon, because you get into Darkheart Thicket, and even though you didn't have to, I did Darkheart right after I finished Val'sharah. So I think I had a profession quest in there or something. But anyways, I did it the same day, and you walk into Darkheart Thicket, and you've got Malfurion, who is first of all fine, and second of all, being a smug asshole. And I'm like, I literally just killed Ysera. Like, do you even know what's going on right now? Like, you were there when she was corrupted. Like, why are you talking like... He's, like, taunting Xavius. Oh, my God. I was so mad at Malfurion when I got into this dungeon.
Okay. Again, I'm going to have to defend Malfurion. A character I don't even like, but I didn't get that vibe at all. Like, at this point, I feel like he's just he's clearly angry. It's the whole reason he stormed off. It made sense to me that at this point, with heroes, on Xavius' doorstep, that Malfurion would just be, F you, man. Like, these guys are going to come. They're going to kick your ass. Like, this isn't even the full-on nightmare. You have no power here. Like, that was the most I liked Malfurion in all of this, because I thought he was being really whiny up until this point. So the fact that he finally...
Well, and that's the other thing, too. I felt like it was a complete switch. Like, last time I saw him, first of all, he was, like, kind of, like, whiny and tough to deal with. But then he throws this tantrum and runs away. And then all of a sudden, he's just, like, totally calm and all smug and stuff. And I was just like, I don't know what you're trying to get at with Malfurion, but I don't like him at all at any point in this zone, period. And because I just come off of killing Ysera, I was that much more angry at his attitude when I got into this dungeon.
I understand that. I definitely did not have the same reaction whatsoever. This was the most I liked Malfurion. This was finally at least seeing appear into... Again, I like seeing characters at their breaking point. I like seeing this spark of fire in them, and this was clearly like, okay, cool. Malfurion, after years of just him snoring, literally, in a hole in the ground, and then when he finally wakes up, he's just kind of this zen, kind of annoying hippie that, like, it's not an aesthetic that speaks to me. finally seeing what makes him a leader, which is this little spark of anger and rage. Like, he's clearly at his wit's end. He's being tormented by his actual nemesis, this person that his greatest failure, which is Xavius. Made sense to me. I liked it. I don't like Malfurion. Personally, I feel a punch was pulled by not killing him, and I would really like to see the fallout from Malfurion's death. Like, I would love to see what Tyrande would do in the wake of Malfurion dying. I'm just shipping her and Illidan as hard as possible. But I would like to see Tyrande just go off the deep end and go on a murderous spree against the Legion and the Nightmare, and then also have just one more reason to be like, hey, Illidan, I messed up. I want that. I want Ysera, not Ysera. I want Tyrande going up to Illidan's doorstep with a boombox, playing some, his favorite song, making amends. I want that.
Oh my God.
But again, before we get into Braden's Brook, I really liked Darkheart Thicket. I thought the dungeon as a whole was great. There's not much to talk about lore-wise. It's mostly fighting your way through more corrupted,
versions
ancients and archdruids and saving Malfurion. Malfurion is saved. We beat back Xavius' shade. It's not actually Xavius. He is in the raid that just launched last week. Or 2 weeks ago. When did it go live?
I think it was just last week.
I think it was just last week. Yeah. Anyway, doesn't matter. Damn it, I really want to raid, and it's hard to find the time.
Yeah, and LFR isn't open yet, so.
No, and I don't like LFR.
I hate LFR too.
I really don't like LFR. Hey, if anyone wants to raid, and you're good. Most times, I'm totally cool. Like, I'll play a game with anyone, regardless of your skill. I am a bit of a jerk when it comes to raiding. I don't want to deal with people who aren't who don't know their role. But that's where I get a little aggro is raiding. But hey, if anyone's horde and you consider yourself pretty decent, we're going to be attempting to put together a 10-man at some point. So tweet at us. Anyways, back to the lore. The whole fallout with Ysera's death. This makes me excited for like the next expansion. Because I feel this
expansion or like patches to Legion.
Everything past this. This changes the landscape of WoW in a rather sizable way, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Well, she's the first aspect to die post Deathwing, so she's kind of the epitome of what it now means that the aspects are actually mortal. So I feel like it's. Oh, I guess. Sorry, Malygos. Technically, we killed him too, right?
Yeah, but this is the first aspect that wasn't crazy and a threat to existence that died.
Yeah, I guess so.
And Deathwing also himself, he's the Earth Warder. So,
so now what we're left with basically is Alexstrasza of the Red Dragonflight.
Kalecgos.
Oh, Kalecgos, yeah, who
took over.
Technically was made into the blue aspect
after
and
Malygos'
the head of the
death.
blue flight, but the blue flight has basically been disbanded.
Well, that was Kalecgos' doing.
Yes.
They're an informal group of dragons now, and we actually dealt with I think the largest single group of them in Azuna.
Yes, we did. Yeah, and then Norzurmu with the bronze flight.
Yep. Aside, again, I know eventually we're going to talk about Braden's book. What is Wrathion doing? Because all the way back in Pandaria, he called this shit like Babe Ruth. He just pointed it out like, yo, guys, Legion's coming. Like, how have we not seen him yet?
Yeah, and so this is a little bit of lore that I'm not really familiar with because the Wrathion questline basically was the legendary questline in Pandaria, and so therefore gated behind a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't do. And this comes down to my probably biggest issue with Warcraft as a whole is hiding important story points behind a specific type of content and not making it available just through questing. So for instance, I believe we talked about it during the Azuna chat when we were talking about Cordana Fellsong. I got most of the way through that legendary questline, but it required you to raid the final raid of the expansion. It required you to raid every raid in the expansion, but it finished with the final raid in the expansion, and you had to kill more than 30 bosses because you had to get 30 tomes to drop. And then those tomes had a chance to drop, so it wasn't like a guaranteed thing off of every boss. So you had to do the raid many, many times in order to get these 30 tomes. And the final piece of story content, which was Cordana betraying Khadgar, you don't see that if you don't complete that legendary quest line. And if you're not a raider, then you just don't get to see this content. And there's been so much of that done, especially it was done in all the way through everything I can think of. Every expansion, there is big, huge story content that you just don't see or hear of if you aren't a raider. For some reason, Garrett, I can't hear you right now.
Oh, I muted myself and forgot to unmute myself.
Okay.
What I was going to say is I'm going to defend this because
okay.
At a certain point, you have to add more story during the course of patches. And a lot of that is going to be, at least in some way, tied to raiding. And because of LFR, raiding is not that big of a hurdle to overcome. So I think to basically, in a perfect world, if the only thing you're concerned about is everyone seeing the big story beats and making sure no one misses it, you have to put it in the leveling questing. And that's pigeonholing the story too much, that you then cannot progress the story enough in subsequent patches.
I don't really believe that, because I think they're showing that they can gate content very well at level 110 in this current expansion. I mean, like you can put it behind rep, you can release it at the same time. You can say like, yes, here is the raid, and when you progress through the raid, this is the thing that you do, and then you can either choose to do the raid or not do the raid, but here is the quest line that goes along with the release of the raid, so you can be part of defeating whatever the big raid boss is, or you can know that that happened and get the rest of the story. I don't think that there's any reason that you have to complete raids, and especially where you've got, and I guess now we're not going to have legendary quest lines, obviously, because everyone has essentially a legendary in their artifact weapon. But yeah, I don't know. I really feel like you can release quests at the same time that are put behind some sort of a wall, if that's what you're really worried about, without it having to be that big of a content. Because the biggest problem, I think, with raiding in general and with leveling in general is that you don't learn how to actually be a contributing member of a raid just through leveling. Even dungeons, I find the dungeon bosses are quite easy in comparison to raiding.
Again, I completely disagree with you. Heroic, if you're gonna raid, you're probably gonna gear up through heroic, and it does bring some challenges. And yes, raids take it a step further, but it has to. You at a certain point, you have to leave something to make raids unique. So yeah, while certain dungeons and heroics are relegated to different versions of Don't Stand in the Poop or in rage timers, those still exist in raids, and then there's just usually some unique aspects tacked on top of that, but that needs to be there. Otherwise, then why raid? And also, while I get it, because raiding is difficult, I just put a call out for people to let me know if you want to raid, because I want to put together a team. But not everyone wants to, grind for rep to see some cool story beat. Personally, I would rather raid than grind for rep. I fucking hate grinding for rep. It is the worst thing in the history of World of Warcraft, as far as I am concerned.
See, and
the only thing that would be worse is if I had to grind.
Very much hate raiding.
Okay. Yeah, but that's the point I'm making is you can't make everyone happy. And you have to spread it out between all aspects of the game. And honestly, I think the only thing that would be worse than grinding rep is if they put it behind grinding for like mining ore or fishing. That's the only thing I would hate more.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if they made it fishing?
Yeah, I hate rep grind. It is probably the best it's been in this expansion. I still would like more options. For the love of God, just give me a fucking tabard like in Lich King and let me go run dungeons, because I want to run dungeons. Let me get rep for running dungeons.
They definitely they've moved away from rewarding people for dungeons, that's for sure. I think they were unhappy with people just grinding through dungeons. And I feel like, I guess for me, especially in Draenor, which is my kind of only raiding experience, because I wasn't good enough to raid in Pandaria, and then, and I think maybe our differing perspectives come from the fact that you've played for so long, and so me trying to play catch up and learn everything all at once, maybe that's kind of playing into why I don't necessarily like raiding. But in Draenor, I got really into Ashran. I really, really, really liked PvP. That was the kind of grinding that I was enjoying. And I felt like I liked that because the combat was pretty much always different. You were in big enough groups of people. There were all classes represented for the most part, even if all the Alliance were playing human because of their ridiculous racial buff. But anyways, so
you're such a PvPer. It's hilarious.
So, but that kind of grinding I found at least interesting because the combat was always different. I found raiding, doing the same content over and over and over again, was either ridiculously frustrating because you could never get past a certain point on a certain boss, or like the fight was just so predictable that you could just be like, okay, at 1 minute and 37 seconds, I need to step 2 steps to the left because the boss is going to throw poop over to this place. And, it just, I don't like that kind of rehearsed dance in my combat. I liked the unpredictability of PvP. Like, you're playing against other players. You're never 100% sure where they're going to move or what they're going to do or how good their rotation is. And so I felt like raiding was just too predictable, but then you would get also bashing your head against these walls. So that kind of content just it didn't really appeal to me. I'm still raiding because I like the people I raid with, but I'm not excited about the prospect of these fights against these NPCs that are ridiculously predictable and can be learned. So because I don't like raid as a content piece, and this is and I know that the Warcraft devs have talked about this before, where there are a whole bunch of different kinds of people that play Warcraft. There's, questers, there are rep grinders, there are profession people, there are raiders, there are PvPers, there are dungeon people. Like, you can't make everybody happy all the time. But I think their big mistake is locking things behind one of those pieces of content. Because I know there's a lot of PvEers that hate when things are locked behind PvP, which is one of the things that they did in the Pandaria legendary questline. You had to do PvP to progress through that questline, and a lot of people were really upset. I just think in general, to do anything that is putting it behind any kind of a wall that isn't easily accessible, if it's not my playstyle, that's the problem. Everyone has to quest. So I feel like putting story behind questing is the way to go, because you have to quest to level, right?
But you don't have to quest past 110, so people are going to miss it if you put it behind a quest.
Possibly. You can still quest past 110.
Yes, but you don't. You don't have to.
They've done a really
you don't
good
have
job
to do
of
anything. I mean, you could just pet battle for the rest of eternity, and for some people, that is the game of World of Warcraft. So,
yeah.
I completely understand your point, but you have to sprinkle. You have to sprinkle it across all of World of Warcraft, in my belief. And raiding is so easy now; it is absurd. I don't think it is a hurdle in any way, shape, or form. If you don't like raiding, I find it bizarre that you're not just doing LFR just to see the story, because that is the easiest, quickest way to get it in. I love raiding. It is
that are usually gigantic jerks, which ruins the experience for me completely.
Turn off chat. You don't have to talk to them. I mean, it's really easy to uncheck that box, and there's nothing helpful going on in there. I'll tell you that right now. I agree with you there. Large masses are full of a-holes. But for me, I'm the complete opposite. PvP is my least favorite thing in World of Warcraft. I really enjoy it, but I mean, at this point, Blizzard is the reason World of Warcraft PvP is pretty low on my totem pole now, because I have Heroes and Overwatch to go get my PvP fix. So if they ever put story behind PvP, I would fucking riot. So I don't know. I mean, you said it yourself. You're never going to make everyone happy, and I love raiding. So
yeah. We got totally off on a tangent there. Basically, it was just me saying I'm not very familiar with the lore of Raytheon because it was behind that quest line in Pandaria, which I never even got close to finishing by the time my character was even high enough level. Like, I didn't hit max level in Pandaria until like halfway through. So I was way far behind. People had already finished with the first part of the quest because, that was behind that raid content. I think I got to Veil of Eternal Blossoms like 2 or 3 days before they patched it to where Garrosh like put the heart in the well and it exploded and basically ruined the Veil. So I got like 1 day of questing in the Veil before it was just destroyed.
Again, it's an MMO. I would rather have that than not have it. I want the world to change.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, so I was already behind, and then so I couldn't find anyone to do the quest with because all the raid groups had already moved on and all that kind of stuff. And doing, I guess, a few years ago, Jocelyn absolutely did not do things with unknown groups. It's still, I very, very rarely will, like, queue into dungeon groups and do things. Even when I've done the content many, many times, I don't like random groups of people. They tend to be mean to me, and I have a really thin skin.
All right. So I feel like all I've been doing is shitting on your opinion. So I want to give you homework. I'm going to give you constructive homework, Jocelyn, and just give it a shot. And if you don't like it, I completely respect that there are things you like and you don't like. But here's homework. Seriously, I know it felt like a joke, but seriously, try LFR when it comes live.
I was going to say, yeah, it's not live until
it's not live yet. Give it a shot.
Day.
What you do, grab a friend, anyone, your boyfriend, me, whoever happens to be on. Turn off chat, go to LFR, and just bring at least one friend. I think you'll have a good time.
Yeah.
I don't like LFR that much either. I would much rather raid, but that's because raiding is my favorite thing, and I like having a team, and I like talking to 9 other people on comms and working towards a greater, event or a greater accomplishment. But that being said, if all you want to do is just get through and get the story, try LFR, turn off chat, and group with at least one friend.
Good advice. So I think, yeah, really quickly, do you know anything, or do you want to talk about Raytheon at all, or?
No, I'm just
like, you just want to know.
All
where
I
the
wanted
hell
to throw out there is
this?
How have we not seen Raytheon? This was teased 2 expansions ago.
I wonder if he is coming in a future patch or something. Or I wonder if there's possibly a class that we aren't playing, and maybe you do some questing with him through part of your order hall, because I know I've only done I've done mage, I've done paladin, and I've done hunter. So I'm wondering, I don't really know who Raytheon would kind of fit in with, like maybe warlocks. Maybe shaman, because he's part of the Black Dragonflight, so he's an Earth Warder type of a character. I don't know, but I'm wondering if maybe he's in there somewhere in that kind of a role, or maybe if he's coming in a future expansion to be kind of like, oh, hey, well, you guys were like fucking off in Draenor and not really doing anything of importance. This is what I was doing.
Yeah, I have no idea. I was just putting it out there that I would like to see Raytheon. I don't know where he is, what he's doing, but he was the original, tease for this expansion 2 expansions ago. So anyway, let's finally talk about Braden's Brook. What's going on in Braden's Brook, Jocelyn? Because I actually do not know. I still haven't completed the zone. I found it randomly on my death knight a few days ago, and I was like, how did I miss this?
So actually, you get this quest at the Temple of Elune. There's actually a merchant who has been killed and is like laying on the street. Yeah.
I found the quest and I ignored it because I could tell it was like, you have nothing to do with what's happening with everything with the Night Elves. So I'm going to skip you for now. And then I never went back to it and randomly came across Braden's Brook while doing world quests the other day and was like, oh my God, this might be the coolest looking zone in all of Legion.
Yeah, it is a really, really interesting area. So basically, you come across this dead merchant, and then the quest sends you further down the road, and then you come across a cart that's been attacked, and then that sends you further along again, and you find this village of humans who are being essentially turned into Worgen. So they have been infected with the Worgen curse. They're really not friendly to you at all. And I don't know
whether you're Horde or Alliance, by the way.
Yeah. So they're really not friendly. They don't like outsiders. But essentially what you have to do is you have to go in and you have to kill a bunch of the things that are threatening the town. And one of the things that is threatening the town is risen night elves. And this part is really cool because this is where you meet Jared Shadowsong, who is brother of Maeve. Maeve is what I've always said. Illidan's jailer, anyways. And so it's her brother. He was very instrumental in the War of the Ancients because essentially what happened is he was a commoner in the Night Elf Society who was recognized for his talents by the Lord of Black Rookhold.
Yes.
Black. Yes. I keep wanting to call it Black Rock, but it's Black Rook.
It's Black Rook, which was a major fortress during the War of the Ancients.
Yes. And that was led by Lord Ravencrest, who dies in the War of the Ancients. And when he dies, Jared takes over his army, essentially. Mm-hmm. And Jared becomes basically the general of the Night Elves. And he's one of my favorite characters in Warcraft lore because he's another one of those characters that basically has greatness thrust upon him, and he's still very humble. Like he doesn't believe that he is the best at anything, really. He's just trying to do the right thing all the time. And so he, as a character, I loved him in the books. I love him in the game. I find that he's one of the characters that they actually did bring from books into game very well. I like the character arcs and the way that they've interpreted him. So yeah, you get to quest with Jared, which is really cool. And then through all that questing, you actually get to go into Blackrook Hold, and you get to see like basically the ghosts of the army. And this is also where you do some Illidan questing later on through some of the what's it called? It's like the heart of something, the big glowy artifact thingy that falls from the sky. It sends you on a quest into Blackrook Hold.
Yes.
In order to do so, to see some of the War of the Ancients. So this whole area is really steeped in that War of the Ancients Night Elf lore, but from a army perspective, as opposed to more of like a druid Night Elf type perspective. Yeah, this is very much like the general and the army and the troops.
Yeah.
Very militaristic. That's the word that I'm looking for.
Military. There you go. That's yes. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Because there's a lot of War of the Ancients callbacks throughout this whole expansion. I mean, we saw a big chunk of it when we were questing through High Mountain. As a matter of fact, Jared Shadowsong shows up in that briefly. In
High Mountain, he does. Yes, you're right. When you're playing through the flashback with as Huln High Mountain,
yeah, he's the one who
do go and talk to Jared.
Yeah, he's the one that made me all giddy because he's the one that informs you have to go fight Tichondrius. I'm like, yeah.
So what you do with Jared after you discover the risen threat at Blackrook Hold, which is another part of Gul'dan corrupting the zone. So you've got the nightmare, and that's happening with Xavius, but Gul'dan's actual corruption of the zone is essentially raising Lord Ravencrest and his followers, and then basically telling them that like Gul'dan's the good guy and we're the bad guy. Like he's basically got the whole situation backwards. So you go in to Blackrook Hold as questing, because Blackrook Hold is also a level 110 dungeon. So you go in as... Pardon?
I was going to say, I just ran it yesterday for the first time. Oh, man, what a cool dungeon.
It's a really cool dungeon.
Exceptionally cool dungeon. If it was just the catacombs in the beginning, I would have been happy. But the fact that you like ascend this whole,
like tower thing?
Yeah, this whole, just ridiculous structure is awesome.
Mm-hmm. So basically what happens when you go into Blackrook Hold with Jared, he is heading in there because he's trying to find his sister because she has essentially been captured. And so we get to go down into the catacombs and rescue Maeve. So I really enjoyed that whole storyline because I feel like it humbled her a little bit because I've never really liked her character. And I found that she was strong because she never broke, but at the same time, and she's still looking for revenge, but she felt a little bit more sane. I feel like in her pursuit of Illidan, she was just this way crazy, just gone kind of a personality. Like she seems a lot more centered now in Legion. So
I've always liked her as a character. I like those kind of characters, ones that are so like fixated on a single goal. I always enjoy that in fiction. It's definitely not something I want to be like, but I like this character, so I've always enjoyed Maiev, even though I'm an Illidan fanboy and she was doing everything in her power to kill him. I was still a fan. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to see this as well.
Yeah, so I mean that is very quickly what I can remember from questing in that area, but it did have, and you get to go back and do it as part of a world quest, but it had one of the most fun little questing bits that you could pause that I think I had in this whole entire zone. And it was where you're given like smoke bombs, and you have to throw them at ravens so that Granny, whatever her name is, I can't even remember, can shoot them with her rifle. And she is so fun.
Yeah,
oh my God.
The polar opposite of annoying old Tauren lady
Yes.
from High Mountain. This is just this crabby old woman who's just like, mark those damn ravens so I can shoot them out of the goddamn sky. I loved her. She was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did do that quest. I'm still far from done with the actual quest line in Braden's Brook, but it was actually
sorry.
no, it's fine. It's a spoiler show. At this point I don't care. I'm very focused on gearing up at 110. That's why I haven't done it yet. As a matter of fact, I just did a section of the blacksmith quest line yesterday that took place within Blackrock Hold, but not in the dungeon. It's actually why I ran the dungeon. I thought it was in the dungeon, and then I found out it's not. It's
there's actually it's a really neat area because it encompasses a questing area and a dungeon and a PvP arena all in one very small little island.
Yeah.
So it's really interestingly built in that it incorporates everything all together really well.
Yeah, the level design there is top notch. They did a really good job with it. I don't know. I really like the Worgen aesthetic. I've never really wanted to play the race all that much. I'm not a werewolf fan. I'm always on the vampire side of that fiction. I'm like, yeah, vampires. More on Underworld. Fuck Twilight. But anyways, but I really like the whole aesthetic of the Worgen. I like that they're like this old timey, creepy Ripper era London aesthetic.
Yes.
I love that, and and I really feel they got the shit end of the stick. In terms of the representation in Azeroth as a whole. They they get this beautiful city of Gilneas. They don't get to keep it. No one really gets to go there. You get to quest there a little bit as a Worgen or an undead. That's about it.
Yeah.
And then they're just relegated to hanging out in Darnassus. And I love Darnassus. It's like the home city for me as an original Night Elf player. But, dude, Gilneas is awesome. The fact that you never really return to that, you never get to see any more of Worgen culture is sad. So I love that Braden's Brook is finally the Worgen getting just a little bit of their due.
Yeah, and it's a great little area, and like you say, it's very much like callback to Ripper era London, and that to me, I just kind of went, whoa, this is the Worgen? Okay, that's actually pretty cool.
yeah. No, Greymane is awesome. I get why you hate him, but you gotta respect he's such a cool character, such a supremely cool character, so tragic. I love Greymane, and if he's gonna be, the warblood of the Alliance from here on forward, sign me up because I'm excited to see where this war escalates to.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in a nutshell, that's Braden's Brook. So we even get to fight the ghost of Lord Ravencrest at the end of Blackrock Hold, and he realizes his error because his advisor is revealed to be a Dreadlord at the end, and so you fight him first. You kind of kill his ghost. But he's still hanging around. I don't know. You can't kill him. He's still a ghost, man. You can't kill him. You defeat him in battle, and then he realizes, and he kind of cheers you on from the sidelines as you take on the actual Dreadlord.
I think basically you're fighting him. He's losing, and then so the advisor jumps in and says "Roar, enough of this," and then Ravencrest is like, all right then. I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. That Dreadlord had one job, and it was don't reveal yourself to be a Dreadlord, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. I think it's my favorite dungeon so far.
Blackrock Hold?
Yeah, I don't think I've missed any 110 dungeons.
I really like Maw of Souls.
Oh, I haven't done that. You're right. I haven't done that yet. I just got a quest to do it yesterday on my Death Knight. So it's
pretty good.
That will be next for me. So I've heard it's pretty sweet.
I think that's probably my favorite. Although I haven't done Vault of the Wardens.
Vault of the Wardens is awesome, absolutely awesome. But you've already seen it if you've done the Demon Hunter starting zone.
Oh, okay, I've done that. Yeah.
But the mechanics and the boss fights are sweet. I will screw it. I'm going to spoil it for you because it's a spoiler show. The bosses in the wings to the north, south, east, and west that you re-imprison when you're a Demon Hunter, you have to kill them. They're bosses in the actual dungeon, and they have some really cool mechanics.
That is one of my favorite spots actually in the Demon Hunter starting zone is when you're riding the elevator and you can kind of see all the battles of all the different things that have been imprisoned in the vaults as you're riding up, and you don't interact with it at all, but you just see all of the wardens doing their fighting as you're going up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet. You get to ride that elevator again, and I won't spoil the end for you, but the final boss and the mechanic and everything that happens at the very end of the Vault of the Wardens is supremely awesome.
Oh, I'm excited. I should probably go run that now then, with a random group of people.
I have to eat lunch before we.
Oh my god! Yeah, I totally forgot.
Stream. Otherwise, I would be glad to tank it for you. But, anyways, that brings us to the end of this episode of Embrace the Spoilers Legion. Next week will be our final episode? ? Maybe. Who knows? I'm really enjoying talking about WoW, so I could be convinced to find a reason to continue talking WoW. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Not to give everyone a bunch of hope and then rip it away, but.
Well, I think that there's still a lot of content to talk about because I think they did a really good job with all of the artifact questing and all of the class order hall quests as well. So, I mean, there's still a lot of story. There's still a lot of content that isn't necessarily just the main leveling content. So I think that there's a couple of episodes in there somehow.
Yeah, I think so. Anyways, we'll figure this out. There will be talks that will not be recorded where we figure things out. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Jocelyn, where can folks find you when you're not spoiling Warcraft?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at JossPlays. You can also find me over at jossplays.com, where I've been posting episodes of my newest show with Jules from Torrent Think Tank and Nevermore called Slaying Demons, where we talk about all of our inner demons and give each other help, support, and resources for how to defeat them.
Fantastic. Go check that out. You can find everything I do at amove.tv. This is the show I've been promoting, so I don't really have much to promote. You just check it out. Go there, find a podcast you like, and listen to it. There's a new Let's Talk About Star Wars up. There we go. There's an irregular occurrence that is new and shiny, and you can go listen to us, Tom Merritt, Jenny Josephson, and I nerded about Star Wars. So go check that out.
We also had Daniel Negreanu on The Last Angry Chicken, and that has been a highly praised episode. So if you're behind,
has been.
Get caught up.
He he really set the bar, I think, for future guests.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened yet, I highly suggest you go and listen to that episode.
And if you're okay with the level of fucks on this episode, then you'll be totally okay with that episode of The Angry Chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't really been exercising our right to cuss with the explicit tag that we originally put on the Embrace the Spoilers feed. I feel like we got it all out of the way on this episode.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, with the explicit tag on Embrace the Spoilers, I mean, it started out with Game of Thrones, which, with the amount of sex you talk about in Game of Thrones, like, you have to put an explicit tag because it's an explicit show.
It's a lot of dick and balls to be discussed. When it comes to Game of Thrones. But anyways, thanks again to everyone for tuning in. We will return next week to discuss as much Suramar as we possibly can. There's no way I have unlocked everything by now because I leveled 2 characters at 110 before I started doing world quests. But we will do our best to discuss what we have done in Suramar so far and however much we can actually dig up through spoiling it for ourselves online. So tune in for that. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And until next time, for Azeroth!